The air was thick with red dust as Commander Jaren stood alone on the silent hilltop. His hand gripped the hilt of his old, scorched sword. Every soldier behind him knew what this place meant. In front of him stood the tall wooden cross marked with only 2 words: for him. Jaren closed his eyes and whispered a silent prayer. It was a strange thing for a human to do on an alien world, but this grave was sacred. Every time before battle, he came here. Not because he believed in gods, but because the one buried here once saved his life. They told stories about her. The alien warrior with glowing eyes and unmatched speed. She had fought beside humans during the First Galactic War. She died protecting Jaren's squad from an orbital blast, or so everyone believed. He dropped to one knee, pressing his sword into the ground. The twin suns were setting behind him, painting the sky orange and gold. A strange warmth filled his chest as if he was being watched, but he ignored it. The war was about to begin again. The enemy had returned after 10 years of silence. Jaren stood up slowly. The grave never changed. No weeds, no rust. Even the sand never covered the base. Some said it was cursed. Others said it was protected. He had never seen any alien tech around it, but still, something felt different here. Back at camp, the other officers were preparing for war. But Jaren stayed a little longer. He remembered the way she had fought, how she had smiled at death, how she had stood over him bleeding before everything went black. A sharp wind brushed past him. For a second, he thought he heard footsteps behind him. He turned quickly, but there was no one, just empty sand and deep shadows from the twin suns. His hand stayed on his sword just in case. He walked away from the grave, leaving his promise behind like always. Fight well. Come back, alive. Never forget her. What he didn't know was that beneath the grave there was no body. There never had been. The command tent buzzed with quiet tension. Maps were spread across the table, lit by flickering hololights. Jaren stood still, staring at the red zone marked on the edge of Sector 9. The enemy had moved faster than anyone expected. Their ships had already broken through 3 outer defenses. General Rovek paced back and forth, his fingers tapping against his steel armor. "We move at sunrise," he said without looking at anyone. His voice was dry, tired. He had fought too many wars in too little time. Jaren just nodded and returned to staring at the red zone. Everyone else spoke in low voices, whispering about things they didn't understand. Alien movement patterns, strange disappearances, missing scouts. One word kept returning in their talks: Vanisher. No one knew what it was. Some believed it was a ghost weapon. Others believed it was a warrior. Jaren kept his thoughts to himself. The Vanisher had already visited his dreams twice. Each time the dream began at the grave. Each time a figure stood in front of him with glowing blue eyes. Each time he woke up with a cold sweat. He walked out of the tent into the cold night wind. The desert stars above looked sharp and endless. Far away, he could see the silhouette of the grave on the hill. The twin moons were rising behind it. Something pulled at him again. A whisper deep in his chest, like a memory trying to speak. He made his way slowly through the sand. His boots crunched against the dry surface. No one followed him. No one noticed he was gone. At the top of the hill, he stopped. The grave was still there, the same as always. But this time, something was different. The sword in his hand began to glow faintly. It had never done that before. Not once. Jaren held it up to the moons, confused. The red edges of the blade shimmered softly, like it was humming a silent tune. His heartbeat quickened, and he turned to look behind him. A shadow moved across the sand, slow, smooth. A shape with a cloak walked toward him from the far edge of the hill. Jaren stepped back, sword raised. "Who's there?" he called out. No answer came. The figure just kept walking. When it came close enough, he saw the shape of a woman. Her face was hidden by a hood. Her walk was calm and confident, but it was her eyes that stopped him. Bright blue, unmistakable. Just like in the stories. Just like in his dreams. He couldn't speak. His throat locked. The woman looked at the grave, then at him. Her lips moved, but he didn't hear words. Just the sound of the wind. She pointed to the cross, then she pointed to him. Jaren lowered his sword a little, breath caught in his chest. The woman turned and began to walk away. Jaren wanted to follow, but his legs refused to move. He looked at the grave again. For him, it said. That grave had never been for her. It had been for someone else all along. And now he was beginning to understand. She vanished into the darkness like a ghost. But the sword in his hand still glowed. Jaren stood there, frozen, the wind blowing his cloak around his boots. He had no answers yet, only questions, and a feeling that everything he thought he knew was about to break. Jaren couldn't sleep that night. He sat by the edge of the hill, watching the grave as if it might move again. The glowing sword lay beside him in the sand. His mind raced, searching for answers in silence. He had never believed in ghosts, but now he wasn't sure of anything. At sunrise, the camp buzzed with movement. Troops ran drills. Drones flew overhead. Tanks powered up across the base. No one noticed that Jaren hadn't returned to his tent. No one noticed that his sword was glowing brighter than ever. He finally stood and walked back toward the tents. His armor was dusty and cold. His face showed no fear, but inside, a storm had begun. Every step he took reminded him of the figure from the night before. She wasn't dead, or maybe she had never been. General Rovek spotted him and waved him over. Commander Jaren, we move in 2 hours. Are your squads ready? Jaren nodded. Yes, sir. They're just waiting for your word. The general gave a tired smile. Good. Let's finish this quickly. As Jaren turned to leave, the general grabbed his arm. Be careful in Sector 9. Reports say some soldiers went missing. No bodies. Just silence. Jaren nodded again but didn't say a word. The silence said more than any report could. Back at his unit, his second-in-command, Ryla, was checking weapons. She looked up as he entered. You all right, Commander? You look like you saw a ghost. Jaren gave a faint grin. Something like that. Just keep the men sharp today. The squads rolled out by noon. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions. Sector 9 was just ahead, a place once full of ruins and silence. Now it pulsed with something darker. Jaren could feel it in the air, like static before a lightning strike. The transports halted at the edge of the valley. Drones scanned the terrain. Nothing moved. No signals. No traps. Just an eerie stillness. Jaren stepped out and looked across the field. His hand never left. The sword's grip. Suddenly, the ground near one of the units shifted, not an explosion, a ripple, as if something had breathed beneath the sand. One soldier shouted. Another raised his rifle. But there was no target. Just shifting shadows. Jaren ordered everyone to hold their fire. Eyes sharp, stay in formation, he said through the comms. The wind picked up. Sand swirled into the sky, and then in the distance something began to rise from the ground. It looked like a figure, tall, lean, with armor like glass. It didn't walk. It floated above the ground. Every soldier pointed their weapons at it. But Jaren raised his. And wait, he said. No one fires until I say. The figure kept moving forward. Its face was hidden behind a mask, but Jaren recognized the shape, the way it held its arms, the way it tilted its head. It was her, the same figure from the grave, the same eyes from his dreams. She stopped just 20 feet away. Everyone stood frozen. Jaren took a step forward, sword in hand. The woman raised her hand too, but not in threat, in greeting or warning. He couldn't tell. The sword in his grip pulsed once, as if ready. Jaren spoke aloud, his voice steady. Who are you? But deep inside, he already knew. This wasn't a ghost. This wasn't a dream. This was real. And whatever secret she carried, it was meant for him. Jaren stood tall as the figure approached. Soldiers behind him held their breath. The tension was sharp. No one dared to move. No one dared to speak. The air itself seemed frozen in place. The figure slowly lowered her hood. Her face was young, calm and glowing with soft blue lines across her cheeks. Her skin was smooth like polished stone. Her eyes, bright and endless, locked with Jaren's. She looked exactly like the warrior from the old records. Jaren didn't blink. His grip on the sword tightened. She looked exactly the same, but she should have been dead. This battlefield was supposed to be her resting place. Yet here she was, standing tall like the war had never ended. She spoke with a voice that felt like wind brushing over metal. "You've been praying at my grave," she said. "But I was never in it." Her words carried across the field. No translator was needed. Every soldier understood her voice without help. Jaren stepped forward, his boots crunching on the sand. "Then where were you all this time?" he asked. She looked at him for a long moment, then pointed to the sword in his hand. "That blade," she said, "was once mine. It returned to me through you." Gasps rose among the troops. Whispers followed quickly. Jaren looked down at the blade. It still glowed faintly as if it remembered her. The edges shimmered in rhythm with her words. Something ancient stirred in its steel. She continued, "I gave my life once for a cause, but I was not allowed to pass on. My spirit was sealed in that sword, waiting for someone strong enough to carry it." Her voice remained steady. Her eyes remained locked on Jaren's. The soldiers began to lower their weapons slowly. Even General Rovek, who had watched silently from behind, looked unsure now. Jaren's face was calm, but his mind spun. He remembered every time the blade had saved him without reason. Every time it moved before he did. "It chose you," she said simply. "And through you, I've awakened again." She stepped closer. The sand beneath her feet remained untouched. She didn't walk like others. She moved like thought itself. Light, quiet. "Sure?" Jaren asked the question now burning in his chest. "Why now? Why return when the war is already lost?" She turned her gaze toward the distant horizon, where enemy banners rose like fire against the sky. Because the war was never over. It was paused, and now it begins again. Suddenly, the sand behind them exploded upward. Enemy drones had spotted the gathering. Fire rained down from the skies, the soldiers scattered for cover. But Jaren stood still, sword raised, glowing brighter than before. The woman raised her hand. A wall of light formed around them, shielding the troops from the blasts. The drone's fire sizzled against the barrier. Shock spread across every soldier's face. It was not human technology. It was something older, stronger. Jaren stared at the woman. She didn't flinch. Her energy flowed through the light, through the sword, and through him. "You are no longer just a soldier," she said. "You are the key to ending what began long ago." More drones appeared in the sky, but Jaren no longer feared them. He stepped forward, lifting the blade. The troops looked to him now, not the generals. The sword pulsed in his hand, eager and alive. The time for questions was over. The battlefield turned into fire and smoke. Enemy drones screamed overhead. They moved like metal insects, fast and deadly. The human troops scattered to defensive positions. Energy blasts tore into the sand beside them, but Jaren didn't run. He stood tall with the glowing sword in his hand. Around him, the light shield held strong. It shimmered like water, yet stopped every shot. The alien woman beside him didn't blink. Her eyes followed the sky calmly. She raised her hand and pointed. "Strike now," she said. "Do not wait for them to surround you." Jaren nodded and gave the signal. His voice echoed through the comms. "Units Alpha and Beta, full advance. Gamma, cover fire." The human squads moved with new purpose. The fear was still there, but something greater had awakened. Every soldier had seen the shield. Every soldier had seen her. That power gave them strength. That mystery gave them hope. Jaren ran ahead, sword blazing with heat. He moved faster than before, stronger. The blade hummed in his grip. It reacted to his thoughts. It guided his steps. The enemy drones locked onto him, but their aim failed. The alien woman followed him closely. She didn't carry a weapon. She didn't need one. Waves of force pulsed from her palms, smashing drones out of the sky. Her body glowed faintly with every strike. She was the weapon. Jaren leapt onto a rocky ledge and spotted the source. A large enemy beacon stood tall behind a broken ridge. It was calling reinforcements. If they didn't destroy it, the sky would soon be black with drones. He knew what had to be done. He turned to the alien warrior. "Cover me. I'll take it down." She didn't argue. She only nodded. Then she raised both arms and sent a wide wave of light into the air. The drones froze mid-flight, trapped by invisible force. Jaren jumped down the ledge and charged. The wind roared in his ears. Sand flew past his face. The beacon stood like a tower of bones and wires. Its core pulsed red with power. His sword lit up brighter than the sun. He struck once, straight into the center. The blade didn't cut. It shattered. Not the weapon, but the tower. With one blow, the entire structure cracked and fell apart. A sound like thunder followed. The beacon collapsed into itself. The sky began to clear. Without the signal, the remaining drones lost coordination. They drifted, then dropped from the air like broken toys. The human troops cheered. For the first time in days, they had a clear win. Jaren stood among the ruins, breathing hard. The sword was still hot in his hand. The alien woman appeared beside him, quiet and composed. "The first key is turned," she said, "but more locks remain." He looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She pointed to the sky. A faint black line cut across the clouds. "That is not a storm. That is the true enemy." This was only their whisper. The voice comes next. Jaren stared at the dark shape in the sky. It moved like a living shadow. Slow. Massive. Cold. His skin chilled even through the armor. Whatever it was, it had not come for war. It had come for something older. She turned her eyes to him. "You must return to the grave. The next truth waits there. Only then will you be ready for what follows." Her voice was firm, without doubt. Jaren said nothing. He just nodded and tightened his grip on the sword. Jaren rode back toward the grave alone. The battle had ended, but something greater had just begun. The sky behind him still held the black line like a scar. It didn't move fast, but its presence felt heavy. It watched without eyes. It waited without sound. He reached the hill as the twin suns dipped low. Shadows stretched long across the sand. The grave looked untouched as always. Still, silent, sacred. The words "for him" glowed faintly under the evening light. Jaren dismounted and walked slowly to the grave. He dropped to one knee and placed the sword gently on the ground. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat. The wind whispered around him. He bowed his head, but this time he didn't pray. The air changed. Warmer. Thicker. A soft hum rose from beneath the sand. He looked up. The ground beneath the grave cracked. Not wide, just enough for light to shine through. Golden and calm. The earth opened like a door. He reached out and touched the wooden cross. It didn't break. It shifted aside on its own. Under it, a spiral staircase of crystal descended into the earth. He looked behind him once, then stepped inside. The walls of the hidden path glowed blue with symbols. They danced and moved like waves. The air smelled of metal and earth. As he walked deeper, the hum grew louder. The sword glowed again, lighting the steps beneath him. He reached the bottom after what felt like hours. A large chamber opened before him. At its center stood a crystal pillar. Inside the crystal floated a shape, a suit of armor, not broken, not old, waiting. The same design, worn by the alien woman. Jaren stepped closer. The sword in his hand vibrated gently. Words appeared on the crystal surface, not in any known language, yet he understood them. Chosen of the blade, enter and accept what is yours. He touched the crystal. It melted into light. The armor, inside, floated toward him. It wrapped around his body piece by piece. It was warm, light, strong. It didn't feel like metal. It felt like memory, like belonging. As the last piece locked into place, the chamber shook. The floor lit up. A beam of light shot upward through the tunnel. From the surface, it must have looked like a star had exploded from the grave. A signal had been sent. Jaren stood straight. The armor pulsed with life. The sword in his hand now matched its design. Older, wiser, complete. He heard a voice in his mind. The same voice from the battlefield. You are now the blade bearer, guardian of the last gate. He turned and walked back up the tunnel. The steps lit beneath his feet. The grave above opened before he reached it. The alien woman stood there waiting. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with urgency. You are ready, she said. But time is shorter than we hoped. The shadow you saw is not a ship. It is a prison. And it is breaking. Jaren looked up at the sky. The black line had widened. It was no longer silent. The wind carried a deep rumble across the land, like thunder trapped beneath the stars. Every instinct in his body screamed danger. He didn't ask what came next. He already knew. He nodded once and raised the sword. The grave had given its truth. Now the war would give its final test. The black shape in the sky had grown larger by the hour. It stretched across the clouds like a curtain of night. Lightning flashed deep within it, but there was no thunder. It did not roar. It simply arrived. Back at the command base, fear had taken root. Satellites failed to scan the object. Drones stopped responding when sent too close. Communication systems flickered. No one knew what it was. Only Jaren did. He stood in the center of the base, now fully armored. The ancient suit shone under the lights. His sword hung at his side, humming softly. Soldiers stared as he passed, some with awe, some with fear. But no one stopped him. The alien woman walked beside him. She wore no armor, but she moved like someone built for war. Her presence gave strength to the weak. Her silence brought more comfort than words. The troops made way without command. General Rovek met them at the main tent. His eyes scanned the armor, then the woman, then the sky. Tell me the truth, he said. Is this the end of us? Jaren didn't answer right away. He looked at the dark sky, then nodded slowly. No, he said. But it's the end of something. The general looked away and tightened his gloves. Then we fight until there's nothing left to protect. Jaren didn't correct him. Some truths could not be softened. The alien woman placed her hand on the map. There is a point of entry, a tear in the prison's shell. It lies in the Valley of Silence. Her finger landed on a spot no one had dared visit in years. That place had swallowed every scout that entered. Jaren said nothing. He only nodded. The sword on his side flared with light. The time had come. The blade bearer's duty could no longer wait. He turned to the general. Hold the line here. If we fail, the sky will fall. The journey to the valley took 2 hours by dropship. The sky darkened the closer they flew. Birds had vanished. The air grew cold and thin. Static cracked inside the cabin. Even the ship's lights flickered as if scared. They landed on cracked black stone. The valley stretched wide like a wound in the earth. Fog rolled over it in slow waves. At the center, a spiral vortex spun upward into the sky. It was not wind. It was something deeper, something alive. Jaren stepped out first. His boots struck the stone with purpose. The alien woman followed closely. Her voice was steady. This is where they imprisoned it. The vanished one, the destroyer of light. Jaren gripped his sword tighter. He approached the vortex. Inside it, shadows moved like hands. Faces blinked into view, then melted away. Whispers filled the air, but no language formed. It was not trying to speak. It was trying to pull them in. Jaren raised the sword. It burned like fire. The vortex screamed for the first time. A sound so sharp the very rocks around them cracked. The alien woman shouted, "Now! Open the gate, end its sleep." He swung the sword down into the center of the vortex. Light exploded upward. The fog shot into the air like steam. The wind screamed. The ground split. And from the heart of the valley something ancient began to rise. It had no true shape, just mass and movement. Dark wings stretched wide. A mouth opened without a face. The vanished one had awakened, not with rage, but with hunger. A hunger that fed on fear, time, and memory. Jaren stood his ground. The sword in his grip pulsed like a heartbeat. This was what it had prepared him for, not just to fight, but to become something more, something that even the darkness feared. The vanished one rose higher into the sky. Its wings stretched across the valley, casting darkness over everything. The light from Jaren's sword became the only clear glow. The creature let out a deep, echoing sound that shook the mountains around them. The alien woman stood behind Jaren. Her eyes locked on the creature. Her hands were raised, gathering light between her palms. Her voice rang out like a song. "The blade bearer has come. The seal is broken. The final fight must begin." Jaren stepped forward. The ground cracked beneath his feet. The creature turned its attention to him. Its many eyes blinked open, red and endless. But Jaren did not look away. He raised the sword and pointed it straight at the beast. The sword lit up like a sun. Energy burst from the blade and cut across the valley. The creature screamed as the light struck its chest. The air trembled. The rocks split. The wind turned into a spiral of force. Jaren charged. Every step pushed against the storm. The alien woman channeled energy into him, feeding the armor and sword. The bond between them glowed bright, stronger than metal, deeper than blood. They moved like one. The vanished one swung its wings. Shadows crashed down toward them. Jaren leapt into the air, slicing through the darkness. The sword tore the shadow apart like paper. The creature howled in pain and rage. But it was not enough. To stop him, he landed on the beast's shoulder. The surface was slick and cold. He ran across it, heading for the core where the whispers came from. The alien woman floated beside him, protecting him from each strike of dark energy. At the center of the creature's chest, a black crystal pulsed. It was alive. It was the heart of the prison, the source of the creature's endless return. Jaren raised the sword with both hands. Time slowed. His breath stopped. Then he struck. The blade sank deep into the crystal. A wave of light burst outward. The sky turned white. The ground lifted and fell. The vanished one screamed one last time, its voice cracking the sky. Then it began to crumble into dust. Jaren fell with the pieces, but the alien woman caught him. She floated gently to the ground, setting him down on the stone. The armor dimmed. The sword stopped glowing. The fight was over. The darkness was gone. All across the world, the black line in the sky faded. The stars returned. The winds calmed. And for the first time in many years, the people saw peace return without fear behind it. Jaren opened his eyes slowly. The alien woman stood above him, her hand over her heart. "You were always meant to be the one," she said. "The grave was never for me. It was for the old world. And now it is buried." He stood and looked to the sky. The stars were clear. The air was warm. The sword in his hand no longer glowed, but he could still feel its strength inside him. He looked at the hill where he had once prayed before every battle. He returned there one last time, alone. The wooden cross still stood. But now, another symbol had been added. Not a name, not a date. Just one word carved deep into the wood. Freedom. He placed the sword at the base of the cross. The ground accepted it. Light rose for a moment, then faded. The blade had completed its journey. And so had he. Jaren turned away from the grave and walked toward the sunrise. There were no more battles to pray for, only peace to protect.